Hello everyone and welcome back to the British Esports podcast, the BEE podcast. We're here today for a very special episode because we're here live and in person for the first time. It's somewhat, I guess, of a season finale, if you like, before we go away and look at past podcasts, what we did right, what we did wrong, how we can make things better. And so we thought, why not celebrate by having a podcast in person while we're here at Champs Finals weekend. So thank you for joining us, and thank you, Bryony, once again for joining me today. Special co-host as always.
Yes, thank you. It's nice to actually be around with people, and I apologise now for anyone who might be listening on Spotify and saying, whatever, why does she sound like that? Champs Finals has taken it out of me. So Saul is going to be very kindly leading most of this, but obviously I'll be pitching in. We're going to have a joke, we're going to have a laugh, but we've also got some very special guests with us today.
These guys.
Where are they? We've got Vlad and we've got Terry, very amazing people. So WaXeN and Servitude, they might be known as. You guys might know them as them. So yeah, we're going to chat about things, chat about student champs, and have a bit of a laugh.
Nice. Are you ready?
I'm very ready. Like you said, I'm very excited to finally be able to be here with people in person and obviously let you know all of the experiences we've shared over the last few weeks, whatever it's been since Student Champs.
Perfect. So do you want to just, I guess, introduce each of yourselves a bit more and explain what it is exactly that you do within esports?
Okay. So I'm Terry, Servitude. Am I talking to a camera or talking to you? Should I talk to you?
Anyone.
It's fine.
Talk to the sky.
Talk to the sky. So I'm a host / caster, mostly casting, but with Valorant being added to British Esports, we're kind of less of that now. And you do more of a hosting now. But I kind of mix and match a little bit. And then, around that, I'm just a marketer by day, digital marketer by day. But yeah.
Amazing. I'm WaXeN, Vlad, or the other way around, Vlad WaXeN. I've been hosting for British Esports for the last couple of seasons. This year I had the chance of, with the addition of Valorant, I've gotten the chance to be involved a bit more with some of the casting for Valorant. I've also had the opportunity of being the interviewer alongside Bryony last year for the Student Champ Finals, and I'm also doing that this year. And just love esports, and it's lovely to have this in common with a lot of people here.
Okay, so I guess the first question is a good kind of basis point to start is, how did you both get started? What kind of inspired you to take on this role of caster / host, and where did that kind of come from in your minds?
I've personally had lots of inspiration. I picked up esports back in 2009. I was watching on what was then Oneed TV, one of the only streaming platforms back then, and I was watching Counter-Strike games. I was very young for that, but I was watching it, and I remember this streamer. I think his name was Rahim, and he had the best, the funniest edits while live on stream. When people would be in a 1v1 clutch situation, he would play like the James Bond theme music and switch cameras, and then someone would go for a toxic play or would put something in the chat and he would play Britney Spears Toxic all over.
Amazing.
And it was just so entertaining that I was like, wow. Well, considering I'm not good enough to be an actual player, I love talking about the game. I like watching the game. I understand the game. So why not start talking about the game on broadcasts?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, for me, I worked in education for 11 years before I did marketing, and took hundreds of students to Eurogamer. So I think, like everybody, we played games for like all our lives since we were young. You're making yourself sound like a boomer, but you must have been like 12 or something.
Yep, 12. It was.
Nice. I been to Eurogamer Res, volunteered at all of those, volunteered at Insomnia as well. And then, I really enjoyed just speaking to people about games and esports. And then, I don't even know how I found the role, but I saw it and spoke with Elliot. Background in education as well, really like what British Esports stands for and growing grassroots and stuff. And so gave it a go. And the first one or two were a little bit sketchy. I mean, they are all still a little bit sketchy, I'll admit that. But just loving it. Yeah.
I remember how I found about getting involved with British Esports, and this is a shout out. I was on Twitter following one Fortnite player, Benji Fishes. He's big on Twitter, and his mom, he goes by Mama Benji Fishes. He's quite big in the esports community around the UK as well. And I was following her on Twitter, and she shared the British esport link like a couple of years ago. It popped up, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I clicked on the link, made my application, and that's how I got involved and got to know you guys. Yeah.
There you
The
go.
rest is history.
Yeah.
So far, like, if you had to pick a moment in your time with British Esports, what would you say has been your absolute highlight?
That's a really good question.
So far, it was yesterday. Like on the Confetti X, just signing off with you. That was pretty cool. Like, because we're both fairly smart, and end of day one, it was a long day, brand new arena.
Yeah.
Most of the audience had gone, but like that right at the end was pretty cool, just to sign off and finish off day one, I think.
For me, yesterday would have to be up there. But
I'm not up there.
Oh.
It's fine.
I think it would have to be last year's grand finals. Saturday morning when we had our door opening, and we were just at the entrance, and this was just kind of the break in the pandemic, and we were still following the rules as much as possible, but it was the first time actually getting to see people, and we've been doing that for over a year and a half at that point, just online, and having the chance to see all the colleges, the teams, the teachers, the students come through, and I was at the entrance welcoming everybody. That felt very, very rewarding, because, you know, when you do this on live stream, like isolated at home because of the pandemic, you're not aware of like the connections you make with those people. So at some point it's yourself in a bedroom, you hear a couple of voices looking into a webcam, but getting to see all these people and coming to smile at you, and they were sharing the same experience because everybody was in that situation. I think that must have been, that was a big shift in my view of life, first of all, and then my enjoyment of esports.
No, I'd agree, because I'm not taking back yesterday, because I'm still my favourite. But like last year, for me, I turned up on the Saturday and then left early Sunday, whereas this year, like, turned up early on Friday. So it's just been nice to just talk to people rather than go, hi, you're Bryony, oh, hi, I'm Serv, and then everyone's busy running around, and then it's the end of the day, and then everybody has to go. So it's been nice, definitely, just to speak to people.
But I'm just saying, I think there's a few things that are going to happen today on stage that might take the cake. But
Okay, interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I underestimated how impactful last year was. Like you say, coming out of the pandemic and being able to see people in that kind of capacity again for the first time in so long. It really was like a really special moment. I'm glad we could kind of like all sharing that together. It was really, really nice. So continuing on with the kind of the casting kind of sense then, for someone maybe out there who is wanting to get into this kind of field of both casting and hosting, I guess, what kind of top tips would you give? How do you warm up, practice? How did you get started, and what kind of things do you do to prepare yourself for a cast or a host?
If you plan, like, it's good to practice, and practice is definitely key. The more you do it, the easier it gets. But you're going to be nervous on the day. As soon as you start, or even, well, maybe an hour or so, because you've got all the tech difficulties and warming up. But once you get past that initial start, it's just like talking, so it's just fine. So I think it's just overcoming and not being afraid of what could happen, because most of the time it's going to happen anyway, so you just have to deal with it.
I think, so the way I read the question is, it's a bit broader for me, because myself, I'm an actor as well. So I guess part of my training or development growth as an actor has really helped me a lot with my confidence and ability to speak. More than that, obviously English is not my first language, so there was a process of the last 5-6 years since I have moved in the UK of coming in full control with my English, because although I was quite fluent before, getting to be fully confident, especially when you're live on stream, is something completely different. You don't want to mess up, you don't want to say something wrong, essentially. But my secret, I'm not a big preparation type of guy. I'm a very on the spot, improvise, wing it type of person.
Yeah.
And it just works for me. I know it doesn't work for lots of people, but I just feel more confident that way, because if I am really overly prepped and I just forget, then I will make the whole broadcast look bad. Whereas if I don't know anything from the get-go, I don't have to stress about forgetting anything.
Interesting, yeah.
But I would say it has been years. Like I said, 2009 when I first had my first contact with any sort of competitive esports, I've watched tens of thousands of hours of VODs of multiple esport titles, the ones I played, the ones I don't play, the ones I host, the ones I cast. I've definitely watched more broadcasts of people doing it and commentating and hosting events than playing the games myself. I'd say.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, everyone has their own kind of style. So, like Gian is super hype. Susie's pretty hype. So it depends what you want to do. If you want to do play-by-play or colour. So whereas me and just me actually, it's just more analytical and quite calm and talking about all the strategy. Whereas those guys just go nuts about and hype up the plays. So don't, unless you want to do that, then don't force yourself into that role because just feel what you're more comfortable with. So I just prefer talking about the game. Obviously, I get a bit hyped, but like Gian's like here, I'm like here.
I think I'm a bit of both. I think
you're
I'm
a bit of both. You can be both. Yeah, yeah.
Because it depends on the title, I suppose.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when it's something like Valorant that we've been doing this year, which like is really my playground, I know the ins and outs of the meta in ways that most people don't. Like I've been coaching teams as well and playing at a pretty high level myself. But at the same time, that's why I'm the host because I'm pretty hype person myself. So it's quite interesting. But like Surf said, I don't think you should be something that you're not. You shouldn't put yourself in a box and you shouldn't try to, I mean, you should get out of your comfort zone, definitely, and try to expand. But if you're good at what you're good at, just keep doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I just remember you last year. We were a few hours delayed. It was about 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
The Rocket League was still going, and you were running through the crowd trying to get people hyped up. And people, regardless of how long they'd been there, you brought them all to life. And it was great, and it was a really nice atmosphere to end on. But something I've always wondered is how you guys keep track of so many teams and make sure you're in the know about how people do throughout the season. Because when I started off as a volunteer, I struggled to keep up with all divisions in Overwatch. And all the teams, and all the scores, and map diffs, all sorts. How do you do it?
For me, first season was easier. This past season, I'll be honest, was a bit more complicated. And the reason that is because of the transfers. We've had players that were household names for certain teams, and I think the Overwatch guys are the best example. Like they had the best team in the country by a mile last year, like undefeated. They haven't lost anything around last season. And now this year, you had the same 6 guys. Well, one of them, I think, went to university, and then the other 5 were split in 3 teams with obviously another complementary 12 other players. So that made it more complicated, and that didn't happen just for one team. That happened across multiple schools, multiple teams. And I will be honest, that was slight challenge. Like, even yesterday, I was watching the League of Legends Grand Finals, and I think the Exeter team was like, I've never seen that player's name. But then I was like, but those 3 guys, I remembered from like September 2020 when I was casting a league game. I was like, wow. So it is quite difficult. And again, for me personally, I'm trying my best to use the British Esport website with the brackets and the results that are usually updated. And this is for the players. If any players or teachers are watching this, please, for the next season, follow the instructions from British Esports so that when I'm looking up your nicknames, I don't just see your first name and then when you're on stage you have a completely different nickname because that doesn't help. Yeah.
I'd agree. It was for semi-finals actually, Overwatch. There were some of the winners from last year playing some of their own team members. And then, we got the finals tomorrow, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, Galahorn's still around. So he was part of the winning Overwatch team. But on your question, the website's really handy, but also the staff as well at BA. I can't fault like Jasmine and everybody else who gets all the data and the right battle tags for people, especially for Overwatch. And then the last couple of weeks, Pups and I have actually watched the semi-finals together and just taking notes because you can kind of find a certain amount online. But a lot of players are just put in an alt account or not their proper username, so it's really difficult to find, what their main characters are without watching some of the videos back, and then listening to what they're talking about as well. So it was pretty fun.
Even yesterday, the Rocket League Grand Finals, the audience was completely confused because we had Gomb, which is like one of arguably the best player across British esports in Rocket League this season. And throughout the season, he played with GXMB as his nickname instead of O for Gomb, because his name is just taken by someone else on Steam or Epic. But yesterday, he switched that to Gamble, and the casters knew who he was, and he was calling his name. But everybody, that was an audible question. The crowd was like, are they spelling Gamble Gomb? So a lot of issues, obviously, with esports titles, and that's something very common. But I think trying to stay up to date every single week is the best way for me to keep up with what's happening, rather than going at the end of the season and just trying to learn what went on in the last 9 months.
Yeah. So I guess then looking forward into the future, not necessarily British esports champs titles, but just kind of going forward in general. Are there any games or titles that you'd like to cast that you've never casted before, or events that you'd like to attend and be the host for that that's kind of like your aspiration? What are you hoping to do come the future?
For me, that's a good one. I'd like to attend Overwatch League, because we had the opportunity to do it a couple of years back and then pandemic happened.
Yeah.
So it would be really cool to be a part of that. Like, even just to speak briefly with some of the casters would be awesome. But I think that's a little bit above where my experience is right now.
I disagree.
Thank you.
So I think you gotta aim high.
I got to do a little bit more. But they haven't got too many analytical people, so that could be.
There you go. That's your in. That's your in. Yeah.
And they've kicked like half of their British casters as well, so.
They need some more representation.
They do need some more, yeah.
Put them on blast, let's go. Call them out.
Yes, I think it's just that. I mean, I've been to Insomnia before, and that was really cool, so it'd be cool to maybe do something there. But here, at both the Confetti X and Metronome, they're two quite different like spaces.
Experiences, yeah.
So you kind of get a more close audience, I guess, that you have in Confetti. At Metronome, whereas Confetti, you've got the bigger, grander stage and more lights and stuff, but you're maybe slightly more distance away from the audience.
I would agree.
So it's it's a different dynamic. So you've got two completely experiences. So I don't think I've done this, but I'd really like this because it's so different. I think Metronome and Confetti offer enough differences that you kind of get a flavour of what you could get everywhere else.
I honestly think that's a very good shout, because I like the dynamic of the rooms, and I felt like the Metronome was actually slightly more intimate than Confetti.
Yeah,
X,
100%.
whereas I was expecting to be different because of the proximity, but that's not the case. As for the question, first of all, I'd like to continue with British esports for the foreseeable future as much as possible. I'd like to be here at the next year's grand finals, or whatever week that's going to take place. So that would be a priority. More than that, I'm a dreamer. I've always been a dreamer all my life. I would say in reach, in vision, probably not going to happen, but I think we have recently the Commonwealth Games.
WaXeN at the Commonwealth Games.
Let's see, you've got to aim high.
But the question was other games that I've not casted. I have, but maybe not to the extent that I've had the opportunity with our esport titles. My primary expertise has always been Counter-Strike and Dota. So I'd love to go to the international. I did my best to get somehow in any capacity at last year's international, which was also in Romania. So I was like, it's all coming along, but then I couldn't even attend as a viewer because of the pandemic rules.
Right.
So dream high, yeah. International host. Let me think. Fortnite World Cup. What else? CS:GO major. Count me on. I'm in. I mean, Twitch rivals. Anything. I'll do anything. And actually, other than esports, I have been suggested and advised by some other friends of mine to maybe start exploring my opportunities as a host in traditional sports, such as combat sports, MMA, boxing. As I live in London, there's a big combat sport community in there, and I think I could do a good job as a stage host for that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think you'd do fantastic.
You thought about it a lot more than I have. You got this whole list. I'm just like, yeah, I'm cool.
I think just to sort of round it off then, I think you touched on it a little bit earlier in a previous question, but what was like one solid piece of advice you'd give to someone who wants to get into casting or hosting?
I think, well, one, it's quite hard to narrow it, but I think the first one was just doing it. A lot of the times I see people in many of the endeavors of life just planning, okay, how am I going to do, what am I going to do it? But I think for the first thing you have to do is just start doing it, and if that means casting a game by yourself to get the experience is good, then start networking people, just DM people on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere. I think everybody I've met in the esports community so far is very much a friendly face, and everybody's very happy to help, from the biggest names in the industry to like the smallest names in the industry. We would be more than happy to give advice. Obviously, you guys do always amazing work in promoting any sort of ways in which people can get involved with esports as a talent or in any other capacity. And more than that, I would say just be aware of the fact that you can always do better. That's something that I personally always have for myself. I always strive to improve. I always ask people for constructive feedback or even sometimes negative feedback. Any sort of feedback is good as long as you take that on board and it helps you grow as an individual and as a talent, because there's always the risk of when you're not taking that feedback into account, you become stagnant. And we live in such an industry which is ever growing so fast that when you become stagnant, you might just fall behind everything else that goes around you. So always strive to improve. That's what I would say.
Yeah. No, by doing is like definitely the most important one. And like you said, it feels awkward, especially if you're not used to streaming, like talking to yourself, or trying to talk to a camera, or if you're just doing shoutcasting where you're not usually going to be talking to a camera during the game, just trying to talk about exactly what's happening. But there's lots of people out there who still want to do it. You know, we've had people drop in and shadow for casts, but we do as well on British Esports, just to hear what we're doing, hear what happens from production. But that's just experience, just gaining experience in doing it.
Yeah.
But that's it, I think. There's loads of videos and tips and stuff you can watch online, but like you said, you can plan as much as you like. But you know, I did lots of planning for yesterday, and then we had tech issues, and I just threw my cards up in the air because you can plan it for, you can't plan for everything.
Yeah.
So it's just about doing it and just getting used to. You say like just winging it, but also being able to cope with any eventuality,
any situations.
Yeah.
And then we had, I think, Susie. So if you're a teacher or a school or a student, you might want to get involved some of the British esports, either talent or staff members. Like I said, we had Susie that went and had a few like talent talks at a couple of schools in order to talk to the students and answer those direct questions. I know, like I said again, everybody British esports has either online tutorials, and you have these meetings and you go to places. So the opportunities for people to get involved with our industry, at least in this country, are increasing, but they're already out there. If someone wants to do it, it's not that hard, I would say. You just gotta start doing it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see it as a really big hurdle that they've got to overcome, but I think the step is actually a lot smaller than I think people realise. Just getting started is often the hardest part, but once you overcome that first initial step, it's, I think, quite easy then to almost maintain some momentum then going forward, absolutely. So, just to finish off then, or to round down the podcast, we've got a couple of quick fire questions for you if you wouldn't mind answering some. We'll see how well you do and what kind of answers you come up with.
Is there a right answer?
There is no right answer, no.
Okay.
But,
is there a wrong answer?
There are some wrong answers, definitely, yes. So, name a video game starting with the letter L.
League of Legends.
Easy.
Although that pained me.
But we've got one. Can you name another?
We've got to do another one. We've got to do another one. Ah, look, see, I wasn't ready.
Video game or esport title?
Video game, any video
Legend
game.
of Zelda.
It's at TiVo.
I'd say L.
Would you? Okay.
To be fair, earlier I said it for Z as well, so I will accept that.
Nice.
No, see, failed already. Failed at the first hurdle. Luigi's Mansion.
Ooh,
no, that's a great shout.
Oh, yes.
That's a great shout.
Yes.
There we go.
I love Luigi's Mansion. Okay, if you could play one game again for the very first time, what would it be and why?
What do you think is your most played game of all time?
My most played game?
Yeah.
By hours, I know what it is.
Yeah, what is it?
It's Dota 2. Yeah,
Dota
that's
2.
my. I think the first time. Okay, this is a random one. I'd play Hyperscape.
Okay.
It was,
Really?
a couple of years ago, this Ubisoft title came out. Yeah. It was like a battle royale. Everybody was pulling out battle royals, and it wasn't like a very complex and very finished game. But I remember like it came out. I was like, oh, pandemic. I'll just download it. And I played it for like 18 hours straight. I had so much fun. It died down in the coming weeks because like the player base just decreased. But yeah, I had lots of fun, and it was quite recent.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
Mine would be The Division. Now, it sucked after a certain time because they did not balance it whatsoever, and there were so many bugs, and the PvP just failed. But when I first loaded into that game, very open world, and just like the detail was amazing. Division 2 did something very similar, where really realistic, the awesome like weather engine. You could go into just some random corner building and just find these kind of little bits that they just dropped in. So yeah, Division I think was really cool.
Very good. If you could only play one more video game before you died, what would you choose and why?
For me.
Would you be Dota?
No.
I feel like this is the last.
It would have to be a game of Counter-Strike 1.6. Going back to my roots, it would have to be. Although it would be quite hard to probably find the players these days to play a 1.6 game, but in an ideal situation, yeah.
It would be Overwatch. Overwatch 2, sorry. Overwatch 2.
Oh.
Yeah, it'd be Overwatch 2.
Oh, interesting.
I think because for me that's not the. I don't know if that's the most time I've invested into a game, but for me, I think it's kind of reinvigorating the whole Overwatch scene now. The hype's getting there again. All the streamers are coming back, and the game just felt fresh the last time we played the beta. So I think that just it felt the same but new, and just yeah, all things good about Overwatch. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. If you could have a sequel to any game, what would you most like a sequel to?
You could be adventurous.
Half-Life 3, don't you?
Yeah, Half-Life, yes. No,
Please,
yeah,
yes.
that's a good shout.
We were doing the countdown, like for the mic test, and you went with 1, 2, 3. I was like, you can't say the number, you're a gamer.
Yeah.
Sequel to a game.
Half-Life is a good shout.
But we did have Half-Life Alyx, which was VR.
Yeah, but
it
it's
was
not
really good. I didn't play it because
it's not really a continuation. Like you want something bigger.
Yeah, continuation.
Because Half-Life, I remember playing that on my original PC when I was like 12 or something.
Yeah,
and that struggled to play it.
Yeah.
But that was an amazing game. Like if they did a sequel to Half-Life, because Half-Life 2 when that came out was amazing, and all the mechanics and everything within it looked beautiful. But if they went back and did something like that jump from 1 to 2, Half-Life is a good shout. I'm stealing that.
I would have said, if you would have asked me, like 5 years ago, I would have said The Last of Us, but there is a sequel, and they're working on a third now. But I did not use it for L, because it is The Last of Us. You know what? I think it would be interesting maybe 10 years down the line. And not that I'm a big gamer, I've not played those games that much, but it would be interesting to see that take on a rebranded version. Would be really curious to see a League of Legends 2 or a Fortnite 2.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've played a fair bit of Fortnite, but yeah, I think it would just be interesting because they're such big brands in themselves. It would be interesting to see how the whole world would shift around their re-release of it. Whereas Overwatch 2, when it comes out eventually, it slowly peered off. League of Legends has been on for 10 years. Fortnite is already getting one on 5, maybe 6 years soon enough. So if they would ever release a second version, how would that impact everybody?
Yeah, I'm still holding out for League of Legends Classic to come out at some point, and we go back a couple of patches. I think that'd be sick.
I had a few people yesterday who said League of Legends, but first person, that you're directly in the eyes of the characters, so it turns into a horror game.
Okay.
That'd be like motion sickness on another level for some characters as well.
That's good.
Yeah, Baron would be pretty scary. That close. The raptors just biting me.
What game do you judge people the most for playing?
League of Legends.
Why does everyone answer League of
both
Legends?
common
really,
answer.
I am a Dota head. Okay, it's just I am a Dota player. I was watching the grand finals yesterday, and the grand finals were great, and the players were doing good, and I was like, it's a great game, but there is a better version.
Yeah, but that's because Dota is the original.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, sir. No, okay, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm just joking because it's just a preconception. What am I judging people most for playing of?
Because I guess like the most common answers are going to be Fortnite and Minecraft. Because some people go,
Roblox.
have you not?
Roblox as well.
Roblox.
But they're games for like younger.
Yeah, but those kind of games, you know, they fit. And if you've played them, like Minecraft, I've myself have got lost into building some epic,
100%.
epic castle, like with cool switches and stuff. Everybody's done it. Like Roblox, I don't like the game, but I understand, you know, the attraction to it because you can do basically anything.
Yeah, maybe. No, it's a good shout. Oh yes, I'll give one, which is not a game, but like a series of game, and I think mobile gaming, competitive mobile gaming.
Just in general.
You judge people on that.
Yeah. Well, I judged it when the esport industry had like an attempt maybe 9 years ago. It was like maybe 2012, 2015 when the esport industry was forcing the shift from computer gaming onto mobile gaming.
Yeah.
And then we had gigantic esport event organizers just collapsing financially because it was not a good move. Like when I again got involved originally with esports, the biggest the biggest event of any sport, every year was World Cyber Games, WCG. And then they had the switch of just pushing esport mobile, and in 3 years they were gone. And it's such a weird thing, like comparing that with real sports is sort of like how the Football World Cup would stop existing because they decided to play, I don't know, something else, not football, change the size of the ball or whatever. Yeah, so I would say competitive mobile games, I don't really get it. There's some of them, okay, when you play racing games, I get that, but there were some attempts that I was very judgmental of.
That's fair, I think that's fair.
What about like Rift and stuff though? Because they're really big especially in Asia as well.
Yeah,
like
I know.
They're bigger than, like they're massive industry.
I think maybe in the future there's a place for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think we are there yet, and we definitely weren't there 7 years ago.
No.
Yeah.
And then what's the worst video game you've ever played?
This is where I go League of Legends.
Yeah, damn it.
Again, one of the most common answers.
Do you like League of Legends?
Define
Don't
like.
Okay. You have been hosting that. So.
I have been hosting it. I enjoy watching, talking about League. I think with most of the titles that I'm involved with. No, you said the worst, not the one you hate. You said the worst video.
Yeah, worst.
Okay, that's different than the ones you don't like. Because I would say the games I play the most, I hate the most because so many bad experiences with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not worst games. The worst game that I ever played in my life. Oh yes, got it. Cyberpunk.
Oh,
Really?
I really enjoyed Cyberpunk.
It was No, I didn't. Maybe I was one of the unlucky. I know some people said they didn't have any issues with it, but it was just the worst 40 minutes of gaming experience I've ever had. Yeah.
You timed it?
Well, I had to time it because I asked for a refund, so yes.
Wow. Okay.
So mine was stupidly broken because I pre-ordered it.
Okay.
So I ended up buying 2 pre-orders, so 100 quid, and it wouldn't run initially. They started fixing it, but I mean, trees would spawn in the middle of the roads. However, once you got past that initial, I could admit, very boring initial story mode part, the free roam, everything is incredible, and then following your own path in the story mode. I'd give it another chance. It has been fixed.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a lot of new
Don't
bits and
slate it
pieces in there. It's definitely not the game that they promised it was going to be, but I still enjoyed it when it did work.
I was so hyped for it when they first released the teaser in 2012.
Yeah, it's madness how long it's like.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And then what we got, I don't know. Yeah.
The only game I've done that with, and this might annoy some people if they're listening, is Titanfall, the original.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right, because there was so much hype about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the second one has fixed a lot of the problems that the first one had. But the first one was just... Yeah, I just didn't like it. And I'm a mix of console and PC gamer, so a friend of mine who lives up in Cambridge, down in Cambridge from here. We went to the shop and got Titanfall, went around each other's house, set it up. Within an hour, we were just like...
Having a blast.
No. We weren't.
That's why it's the worst game.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's the only game like where we were so hyped up about it being really good, and then played it, we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do
For
get
sure.
why people like the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, just to finish this off then very quickly, because we're very aware, obviously, Vlad, you have to go on a stage.
I
not
mean,
too long.
apparently I'm fine. So
We'll say. So, British Esports Podcast Classic. We have a segment at the end that we normally play with, I guess, called This or That, where we give you two choices and you tell us which one you prefer and why, essentially.
Okay.
So, my thoughts for today were I was thinking about the kind of games that I play and what I tend to enjoy. And so I thought about difficulty and like what, because I've lent now more towards kind of these years, starting to play games on like a harder difficulty. More so just because I think I like to torture myself a little bit. But so I thought about that and I thought, oh, well, what is it about difficulty that I actually enjoy? So the question I'm posing to you, I guess, the This or That this week is, do you prefer difficulty in the form of like Dark Souls, where it's like it's hard combat and the mechanics you've got to figure them out and it's quite challenging and brutal in terms of there, or do you like more kind of the puzzles where it's more kind of a mental challenge in terms of figuring out how to proceed with a game?
I can always go first.
Yeah, go
Give
for
you
it.
time to think.
please do.
So, I mean, I thoroughly enjoy strategizing. And so I think I definitely lean more towards the puzzle
Yeah.
side. I think I mean, my main game is Overwatch. People should know this by now because it's all I talk about. But it's very much a case of, at this point, I've spent so much time learning the mechanics in that way that it's a completely different ball game than RPGs and things like Dark Souls and things. But I really like the challenge. It's not exactly a puzzle, but it's the strategy side of it that I just thoroughly enjoyed that, and being able to find out, right, what meta will work, what's meta at the moment, and just go for it from there, really. I think I'd lean on the side of strategy and puzzle.
Yeah, I like that. That's an interesting take actually on that. I like that one.
Yeah. I like both. Do I have to pick one?
Yes.
I have to pick one. See, that's because I'm a vanilla WoW player, so the original raids, you'd be playing 3 or 4 hours straight just to try and kill one boss, and you'd be like directing people where to go, what ability to be using, what cooldowns and stuff to be using. But then the flip side to that is like Super Meat Boy and M+, like super like platformy, really difficult. You're going to die 100 times before you even get to the next level. A little bit like Dark Souls, but probably more of a strategizing, because I like the theory crafting ideas of it. Same with Overwatch, where you're like, what's our rollout going to be? Who's shot calling? Where are we going? And that's more of a strategy, not puzzle side, but I guess more than just being difficult to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, very good.
I agree with the strategy side of the competitive game, because I've always been a captain in all the teams that I played, be it Counter-Strike, Dota, Valorant. But unlike you, which you said both, I'd say neither. Yeah, a lot of times when I find myself playing either puzzle-solving games or just games in high difficulty, I'm not enjoying it at all. I would have to choose. I'd probably go for Dark Souls games because a lot of the puzzle games that I've had the chance of playing, I've played lots of indie games in my life.
Yeah.
Which like horror games that require puzzle solving, and some of them have puzzles that are like only that specific one developer could ever come up with it, and you wouldn't be able to just go past that part of the house. Because you need to find a key who's somehow outside the house, but you need to find a hammer who's somewhere else, and then you need to connect the hammer with the key, and you need to sew them together, and you're like, yeah. So maybe it's just because I didn't play the right puzzle games, but yeah, if I would have to choose, I would probably go for the Dark Souls-like games.
Yeah.
But Dota's like pretty strategizing though.
Yeah, like I said, so when it comes to the competitive game side, yes. But when it comes to just casual gaming, so not...
You just want to sit down and play.
Yeah.
You don't have to think too much.
Like, I'm the type of person that I don't complete missions in GTA. I just go around and hit people with my car.
Perfect. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up all that kind of stuff about the puzzle games, because for anyone who's ever like talked to me about like puzzle games, I guess when I was younger, some of my favourite games were like the classic point and click like adventure games. And Monkey Island is like my favourite series of like all time. It's so amazing. I'm so glad we're getting like a return to Monkey Island. It's going to be so good. And so when I was thinking about this, as much as I enjoy, so I've been playing Sekiro, I guess, for reference recently, and as much as like the thrill that you get from finally like killing the boss, and it's so good, I think it'd be disingenuous, I think, to ignore all these puzzle games I've loved like in the past, and that I still love today. So I think for me, I love the puzzle solving, and the ridiculous. Monkey Island 2 is like a great example of like those ridiculous things, like puzzles that like how would you ever supposed to solve that? There's one puzzle that in it where there's like a dam, and there's like you've got to try and like turn off the dam essentially, and there's this like machine and you've got to turn it off, but you need some sort of wrench to do it. But there's nothing like literally that you can ever pick up. And the solution to that puzzle is at some point you've got to pick up like a monkey. And it's because it's like, oh, it's a monkey wrench. So you're supposed to use the monkey on this machine, and he pulls it out of his pocket and sticks the tail in and spins it around. It's like, that makes no sense. How is anyone ever going to come up with that unless you're literally like dragging everything in your inventory onto this thing? It's so ridiculous, but that's why I love it. It's so stupid. So yeah, I'd probably lean that way.
Nice.
So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. Thank you for having us. Bryony, thank you for being an amazing co-host as always. This is kind of, as we said, the season finale in some sort of sense. We're going to kind of go away and look at how we've done, what kind of things we liked about the podcast, what kind of things we didn't. So who knows, next episode might be a complete shift in what you've known the podcast to be for so long. So we appreciate you guys for coming on. We appreciate everyone who's joined us on this first initial journey of the BEE podcast as it's come to be now. Bryony, do you have anything to say before we wrap up?
Just want to say thank you. It's always lovely to speak to you guys, whether it's been online, but in person again. And say we got very brief discussions last year, but this has been lovely. And thank you to everyone who is watching / listening. Again, apologising for the audio of me. But yeah, thank you very much. And we will see you at some point very soon.
Indeed. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.